at our special meeting of the Board of Health on Thursday, August 6th. And we now have our second finalist for the position of health agent. Our town administrator, Mr. Waters, is going to bring in Mr. Francis Daigle. Come on in. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Pat Riley, and to my right is our Vice Chairman, Mr. Joe Pacheco, and to my left, our clerk, Mr. Dick Chavot. And because we are 6 feet apart, if you want to remove your mask, but I know your health is your business, so if you don't, that's quite all right. It's totally up to you. Maybe if we could begin, we want to certainly thank you for applying and for coming in. If we could begin maybe by you just giving us a brief description of your educational background and career experiences that you've had that are relevant to our Board of Health agent's position.
Sure. So I come from the private industry, mostly in management and working with food. One of the things I most enjoyed about service. Also, growing up, my sister is a health director, and my mother is a retired inspector, and my uncle is an OSHA inspector.
Oh my gosh.
So dinner time talk is very, so kind of predestined a little bit, I guess. The past couple of years I worked in Lexington. I'm just trying to learn as much as I can, and now I'm ready to take that step back up to management. So this seems like a really good fit. I like the population size, I like the community. And in the meantime, I have been working on a master's program for public administration, just to kind of put another pin in there.
Sure. Okay, you ready for some questions?
Absolutely.
Okay, Mr. Pacheco.
Thank you. Can you speak to us for a minute about the position you're presently in, the assistant to the director's position, because you don't very rarely see that title a lot.
Sure.
Is that your functional title, and can you elaborate a little bit on what exactly does that mean that you give support to the director in addition to these functions, or am I reading into it wrong? Or
it's a little bit of everything. You represent the health department in a lot of areas to speak on their behalf. So it's a lot of public meetings, it's a lot of committee time, it's a lot of projects like grant projects, meetings, of course, seminars, really anything under the scope of public health. I would be the one who would go to speak on their behalf.
okay, is it considered a supervisory position?
It is.
It is. Okay. How many staff are in the Lexington Health Office?
We're a very small staff, about 3.
Okay, so 3 total, yourself included?
Yeah.
Okay. And you said it's supervisory in nature, so you offer supervision to one of the other employees?
Correct.
Okay. You've done employee reviews.
Mm-hmm.
Have you sat in on hirings?
I've been part of the hiring process, more in the private sector.
Yeah.
But I have been in it in public too.
Okay. Okay. So Lexington, there are some similarities between Raynham and Lexington. I think one of the areas that is probably less prevalent up there, if my memory is correct, is an issue that's pretty important to this board, which is EEE.
Sure.
Can you talk about your familiarity with mosquito-borne illnesses, not just EEE, but West Nile, chikungunya?
Sure, as best I can. I mean, the larvicides and the catch basins are really the main point of it all, is to head it off before it becomes a problem. Last year, I worked with an environmental research company on determining where in town the dentists, this was for ticks too as well, where it was most dense, in what areas, and where we should be starting maybe putting limitations, whether that be certain curfews on activities and stuff like that. So we researched that a lot and talked with that about, the recreation department obviously has a big part to play in that as well. But mostly it's working to prevent an overabundance. I mean, mosquito breeding grounds are really the biggest problem. So if you can be very proactive in putting down in those catch basins the larvicides, I think that kind of curbs a lot of the problem.
Sorry about that.
Sorry.
Guest speaker? We've also been part of some seminars to the public explaining the dangers of mosquitoes. I mean, we hire a pest management company to come in. We've also talked to our mosquito collaborative about doing seminars with the public where they can follow up with questions after too, of course. But we ask for informational stuff so we can send that out to the public as too. It's posted on the website. I mean, that's the most you can do right now about it.
Do you have any philosophical objections to aerial spraying?
I understand both sides of the argument. I think it's important. I think there's a lot of concern from residency about the dangers of that. But I think when they're educated on how it all works, I think they feel a little more at ease. And that's where the Mosquito Collaborative comes in. If you have the information ready to give to people, I mean, our main job is education. So when they understand that and you make it more widely available, I think everybody's a little more comfortable.
Okay. Last question, commute for you. Any concerns, any issues?
I do about an hour and 30 now, depending on traffic. So this is actually less.
Okay.
So not an issue. Hours, same thing, not an issue.
Great. I think that's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Pacheco. Mr. Shavo.
Nice to see you, and thank you for being here, Francis.
Thank you.
So explain to me a little bit, is Francis, is that how I may address you? Explain to me a little bit more about what is the situation? You're the, quote, interim health director. What's transpiring there, and doesn't that position you to be the new health director? Tell me more about that, please.
Sure. So at the time, our exiting health director put onto the responsibilities of me to take charge of the office as his succession. So once he left, that was something I took charge of. When it came down to rehiring, though, they're looking more for a human services model. So I didn't have the coursework and that type of background the person that they wanted did. So that just wasn't what they were looking for.
I'm sorry, help me out with that. What's the pivotal distinction between your broad background and human services? Help me out with that.
So it'd be a lot more intense coursework with the public, specifically vulnerable population like elderly. They'd be working more on the psychological. If let's say there was like a problem with hoarding, they would work more in getting them counselor treatment, being part of that process.
Interesting.
Yeah. Sometimes do it, sometimes don't. I think it's a model that every town tries at one point or another because there is a lot of crossover between human services and public health. It's just, I think that they're kind of two separate things because we focus on the health factor and they focus on the psychological unearthed matter. So it makes it a little tricky.
That's interesting. So, Francis, tell me, you've been personally involved in grant writing, grant research. Tell me more about that, please.
So one of my favorite grants that we tend to do every couple of years is called the Chana Grant. Essentially, you're researching public health projects that the town might like to see or that residents have asked about. A lot of times I go to, like, the town has like sustainability fairs or maybe green energy fairs, and then like you'd be part of one of the departments that would have a table there. And when public are circling, you would ask them what kind of issues they would like raised or what kind of programs they would like to see. And so a lot of that comes from that. We just respond to what people want. So right now we're working on a mental health initiative. It's a multi-year grant, multi-department, focusing on the mental health and stress and recognition of stress in school-age children and the elderly. So a lot of it is researching mental health itself, working with other departments to determine like categories within the program that should be researched further. And it's a multi-year event where we bring in the public slowly, one by one, whether it be activists first, then residents, then parents, and have forums and kind of change the program with their input. So that's my favorite one. I've also worked on an endowment fund for the town, which gave us the funds to do the mosquito research. And there's other ones, but those are the two that I've worked on recently.
Do you apply for the grants yourself, or are you the person that on the front end of that, or?
Yeah, it depends on the grant itself.
Yeah.
Sometimes another department's going to be involved too, so you share that, and so there's a lot of back and forth. But
okay. Yeah. Okay. So let me see. I had something else here.
Sure.
Well, it's not a huge thing, but during the course of your work with the committee that was reviewing applicants, Did you have occasion to talk about the possibility of working with our animal control officer? Did that come up, and what was your response to that, Francis?
Yeah, we talked about it briefly. I'm pretty comfortable with that. We have one now, but we did not in the past, and right now he is only part-time. So a lot of the responsibilities fall on us to carry out animal control.
So let me understand, sorry to interrupt. So in your current situation in Lexington, you have an ACO that part-time that is within your department?
We do.
Okay, interesting. One last question, if I may. Tell me a little bit more. You said you liked this community, and tell me a little bit more about how you arrived at that.
So the population is a good factor. You know, in Lexington, we do it's 35,000 people. And stepping back into management, I like the level this at. It's more like 14,000, I believe.
Yep.
It seems like a very family, community-oriented place. I really like that, too. And I mean, you know, during the interview, I really liked the committee itself, too. So that piqued my interest even more. I noticed you had a previous health inspector on the committee, and that made a big impression on me.
Yep.
It's been a good feeling all around.
Okay, good. Thank you for that, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I got a couple questions too, Francis. What do you see as the difference between the Raynham position and the position that you hold right now?
I think it would just be more responsibility. Right now, you're leading, but you're still a secondary position. In this position, you would be the leader. So I certainly understand the duties, but you know, it's more being available to the public. It's more being out there. It's more knowing how to speak to different types of people and how to talk with businesses and how to work with other departments more as a leader and setting a reputation for that department itself. So I can certainly understand that.
So you see a lot of the role is outreach and public information, dealing with other departments, other groups within the town?
Yeah, I'm big on communication. I like a lot of collaboration. I think a lot of work that we do involves multiple departments to be seen favorably and to get through smoothly. So I feel like my job as a department head would be branching all the other departments to myself and having open communication and them coming to me with their projects as well.
Obviously, sometimes you're dealing with people that are in stressful situations, and they may be a little anxious, maybe even a little angry on occasion. How do you deal with that? What's your strategy for dealing with that?
Well, when people are at that stage, they want to vet, and you got to let them vet. You know, they always do have some valid concerns within that. Maybe you don't necessarily agree, but I think it's important to listen to their concerns and validate them. I find that if you take the time to focus on them and let them vent and ask how you can help, I find that de-escalates the situation quite a bit. They want to feel that you're providing the services that they need from the town. So, you know, it's our job to show them that we are there for them and we provide this service, or can at least point them in the right direction. So a lot of my job is follow through, just talking with them, following through with them on the conversation afterwards, making sure they get to the services that they do need.
And do I understand that you work with a Board of Health?
We do, yeah.
How is your interaction with the Board of Health? What's the differentiation between roles and responsibilities there?
Recently, they've been much more involved, but I feel the role should be for the department itself to do a lot of research and background to present information to the board and give them choices on whether they would agree or disagree with the information to move forward. You know, I think it falls on us too, because, you know, a board is volunteers. They don't have time to look all day and study issues. So I think it's our, you know, responsibility to be that support for the Board of Health as the general leader of the community.
Are they an appointed board or an elected board?
We have an appointed board.
Appointed board. What would be your transition plan should you be selected as the new health agent for the town of Raynham?
So I've been thinking about it. I think 3 weeks would be sufficient. I just have a lot of open things I want to make sure are going in the right direction before I leave. If somebody did need me to start sooner, I'm sure we could do a couple days on, a couple days off, or some kind of mixed day schedule to start with on the ground running.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Pacheco, do you have anything
Nothing,
else?
thank you.
Mr. Chavo?
None, Madam
Is
Chair.
there anything else you'd like to tell us in closing why you think you would be the perfect candidate for us?
It's hard in an interview to really, truly show that, you're the most viable candidate. I just like to say, on behalf of myself, I have a lot of broad experience in public health and issues, and I also have a lot of the technical background as well as the administrative background to be an asset for the town and to support our Board of Health. So I would look forward to the opportunity if chosen.
We want to thank you very much for coming in, for applying, and for coming in for the interview. And we will be in touch with all of the applicants.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Safe drive.
Yes. And I think with that, we're probably going to make a motion to go into executive session, Mr. Pacheco?
Yeah, motion to go into exec for the stated purpose on the agenda.
Yep, that's Mass General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21, Purpose 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, specifically the health agent contract review. And I believe we will be returning with no additional business to
Yes,
be
just
conducted.
adjourn.
So that's a motion, a second, roll call vote. Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Mr. Chavo?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We are going into executive session, and thank you all for joining us.
Great job.